But one way that I've been trying to help couples think about, and my clients think about it, is asking themselves, what freedom can I find within these walls? Like, how can I find freedom in these walls and in my relationship? Like, what would that look like?
Mm. Yeah.
And really thinking, because I think of like, again, not trying to compare our lockdown to being in prison because it's not the same, but the mentality of so many prisoners who like that being like in a cage and that feeling of like losing their humanity. Like they have to do so much mental work to really overcome that, to not let it get them down and not let it beat them down, and to really focus on a purpose. And so that's what I try to help my clients with, is thinking like, what made me feel free and empowered before this pandemic? Like what was that like a few weeks ago?
Welcome back. We are on today with my guest, Courtney Boyer, on the Tool for This Shit podcast. I'm Angie S., the founder of angies.com. That's angie-s.com. Link in the show notes, where I'm a health coach. If you want to work with me, you can contact me via the website or email me directly at hello@angie-s.com. So if you like this show, please rate, review, subscribe on iTunes, follow it on Spotify, or if you're listening from any of the other platforms, whichever way you show love on them is how you can support this show. Share it with your friends. The more you share it, the more people listen and subscribe to it. It really goes a long way to support this show, and it only takes you like 2 seconds, and it's completely free for you to do. So today I brought Courtney on to talk about how to keep things spicy with your partner when in isolation, but also how to let go of the bad choices we make when dating and how to solve issues in our relationships. As a side note, you will hear me say in this episode how happy I am living alone during these times, but ironically enough, after this interview, I Zoomed with a couple of friends and it left me feeling melancholic and not so great anymore about living alone and far away from family and having to take such physical distance from everyone that I see. I just want to say this because how we adapt to changes comes in waves. And I'm saying this so that you don't feel that just because someone says they've adapted to this lockdown and they're doing fine, it doesn't mean they don't have their own moments of feeling low as well about it. So I think it's allowing ourselves to feel shitty when we do, and then we come out of it much faster. Like, if you know what I mean, like by letting it happen, you let it go faster, you know? Just feel whatever you need to feel. It's just faster like that to just let it go again. And by doing that, it didn't last too long. And yes, that's just why I want to share that with you. And so, yeah, just allow yourself to feel shitty when you do, and then come out of it faster. And we just have to go with the flow at the moment. That's just one of those things, and try and make the most of it. Yeah. Anyway, let's begin. Hi, Courtney. Welcome.
Thank you, Angie. So glad to be here.
Now, I'm really excited that you're joining me today. Absolutely. Because I think the first time we spoke was like maybe a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And obviously the situation had already started to turn. So just to give a bit of context, Are we the 9th today? 9th of April or the 8th?
Yes.
9th of April. Okay. Just to give people context. So 9th of April. And obviously the situation is, hasn't sort of improved. We're all still stuck at home. And this episode is not going to be talking about the pandemic, but it's just more like, what do we do? Now we're at home. If you're in a couple, marriage, whatever, how do we, I think a lot of people have been writing in to say that, they're having issues with intimacy and sex or just their partner's getting on their nerves, and other people have been perfectly happy. So I really love when we spoke, because not only are you like a certified sexuality educator whose background was, which you'll explain yourself, but like the background was quite highly sex shaming, in the sense that you could only consume sex within marriage. Mm-hmm. And even then, like, understanding and sort of owning your body is not really a concept that seem to be very much addressed, which
no.
yeah, exactly. But to be fair, that's, even if you don't come from the background that you're going to explain yourself, I think a lot of us around the world still have, shame, guilt, and misunderstanding, and not owning up our desires. You don't have to be coming from a typical community that the world will look at to have those feelings. So I'm really excited to have you on, because I think if you can help people in that context, to be able to help, a wider audience as well. And you also obviously work with a lot of women who also have kids. So, kids, as we know, can get this in the way of sex and libido, know? Yeah. So I'm really hoping that your advice can help both those with and without kids, whether they are dating or actually married. So, with this isolation situation. So before we dive into it, please introduce yourself, where you live and what you do.
Yes. So my name is Courtney Boyer. I am a relationship coach and sexuality educator, and I help overwhelmed and exhausted women find clarity and confidence in their relationship. So I help with all kinds of relationships. So with partners, romantic, with in-laws, with their family, with kids, but most importantly, with the relationship that women have with themselves.
Yes. Okay. And I think that's definitely very important at the moment, because I'm single. Okay. So I'm single. I'm a bit of an introvert. So I'm kind of winning right now. Being alone. I don't, it's not so much, and I'll explain later why maybe. But I think if I was to be in a relationship, and this is what I hear from a lot of the submissions I've received, is that it's when the relationship with yourself is so key, like you said, because it's a mirror. When you are cooped up with your partner 24/7, this is a giant mirror you're facing about yourself, because everything that you're being triggered, or the things that annoy you about them, or a lot of it is a lot to do with ourselves, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's like a mirror for our insecurities.
Absolutely. So just because of the topic, I want to ask you, are you dating, married, single, widowed?
Yes. So I have been married for 15 years.
Yes. Okay. Can I ask how long were you dating before you got married?
Yeah. So we dated for 2 years.
Okay. Nice. Okay. So before we go, actually, the first thing I want to ask you about is, can you tell us a bit more about who your clients are?
Sure.
And what they struggle with, so we can just have a bit more of a context.
Yeah. So I predominantly work with women. I have worked with couples, but I find that it's usually the woman that is really frustrated, or her partner is telling her, her male partner typically is telling her like she needs help and she needs to go figure stuff out. And so then she'll reach out to me. A lot of the women come from conservative Christian backgrounds. They usually had no sexual experience before their marriage, or very little. And so not a lot of sex education or any, just kind of like learning on the job, And then most are moms who are trying to figure out how to juggle, motherhood and marriage. And, some of them are working outside of the house. Some of them work from the house. So that's typically the clients that I see.
And okay, so two things with what you just said. Okay, it's very interesting. So one is, I'm a great believer that if something is wrong in the couple, to go and look within, right? So I've gone before, like in a long-term relationship, I volunteered to go to therapy myself. So I was like, I can't figure this out. It's driving me crazy. And my partner at the time did not believe in any of that. He thought, therapy, fuck's sake, like this. But I was like, I'm doing it. But the second thing is that it's quite interesting when you said with the man, the reaction, it sounds very much like, like the patriarchal society. So I wonder if, from what I can understand, the man you were talking about, those are the husbands, right? Because
yes.
So it sounds like the husbands, I don't know, are they saying you're the one who's unhappy, you're the problem, you need to go and speak to someone? Do you think it's because a part of them is either like completely delusional, or two, because they haven't, or maybe a mix of the two, so one, that they're delusional, and two, that maybe they don't even know they're not familiar with the language of emotional intelligence, or they just don't know, they're just so not used to it that they're really scared to dip their toe in, they're feeling numb about it. They don't know where to begin. So they rather put the blame on the woman because, I mean, let's face it, it's got to be both sides, right? I mean, the men are not perfect.
Well, oh no, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of it actually has to do with this lie that we've been fed by society and the media, and this belief that a woman's sexuality is like the light version of a man's. And so
bless the man. Yes. Okay, yeah.
We expect the women to react, to become aroused, to become interested in sex, and then respond the exact same way that a man does. It's just like same parts, different version. And that is not at all how a woman responds. It's most women respond not completely opposite, but very differently than a man. There is a small percentage of women that do respond similarly to a man. So they are like spontaneously aroused. And then within a few minutes, they're boom, ready for intercourse. But most women it takes a lot more like foreplay, and it takes attention and the intimacy to really build before they're physically or emotionally ready for sex. But we don't see that displayed in, mainstream movies and TVs, and right. Like the woman is just like walking around like she's wet already and like ready to go. And it's like reality.
Absolutely. And I think, this is funny because when you're explaining about how the women respond and how a lot of women need a bit more than just bing bang, thank you, ma'am, is that it sounds like almost like, the guy I think the man almost needs to be like open to be more than one versions of themselves. So they almost need to be the set designer, the director, the producer, the editor, whatever it is. Like there's almost like a whole film set there. And I think, like you said, some women respond quicker. So, and if I understand correctly, by responding, you mean like they're ready to just like for penetration, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And I think there's also sometimes a misunderstanding is that, and is again portrayed in the media very heavily, is that, sometimes if you are really comfortable with someone, sometimes there are times where you're just ready. But there's also most times where you need like a 3-set menu. You need the appetizer, the foreplay,
right?
Then you need the afterwards, like the aftercare, the cuddling, the, sleeping, whatever it is. And so, I mean, I think that, obviously, like there are some film directors that are very good at helping that, or websites, like I interviewed like Cindy Gallup, who does Make Love Not Porn, and there's also Erika Lust. And for example, Erika Lust, even though it is, porn and it's set up, you can see the woman actually being really wet, and she's like, they spend so much more time on the woman, and then the guy barely does any penetration. It's completely flipped over. It's reversed. I haven't watched all her films, obviously, but like the ones I saw. So I do have a question for you first before we go to the next part. Can you tell us how you went from, and I'm going to read, this is a part from your website.
Okay.
Actually, I'll read the whole thing here. So, I grew up during the apex of evangelical purity movement, the one that told girls they needed to keep their legs closed so they didn't invite unwanted sexual advances from young men. That any form of sexual activity before marriage was not just a sin, but something that would disrespect your future husband and ruin your marital sex life. We were promised God-fearing, wife-respecting spouses if we saved ourselves for marriage. Not to mention an incredible, passionate sex life once we became man and wife. Okay, there's so much in that, by the way, to unpack. But can you explain to us, Courtney, how you went from that to now being cool with us single ladies having sex outside of marriage? Because that's a jump, right?
No, it's a huge jump. Yeah. It's funny because I didn't really know any other way. Like I grew up going to a Christian school, K through 12. And then I went to a Christian college, but you didn't have to be religious to go there. So there was the first time really meeting other people who had different beliefs. And my freshman year, I met I was in student government, and our student body president came out as gay.
So how old are you then? Because freshman year.
I'm 18. Okay. Yeah, I'm 18. Well, I guess I had turned 19 when he came out, and I didn't know you could be gay and be a Christian, and was like, what's happening right now? And then it just kind of like took me down this rabbit hole. And I read in one of my classes, I read The Women's Room, and it totally changed my life. And it was just like, why are women stuck in these crappy, like miserable housewife? Like, this is what we're being sold, and we're miserable, right? And the church isn't doing anything to say, no, this is great. This is something God's created, and this is something that should be celebrated. And it just really pissed me off. And so I was like, I'm going to change that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then instead of going to law school, I was like, hey, Dad, I'm going to go to grad school and study sex. That's cool, right? And he was like, what's happening?
What did he say? I mean, what happened? That's a huge, yeah.
So it's interesting because my dad was actually, he was a private investigator that specialized in child sexual abuse allegations. And so he was very much like aware of this perversion and how sex can be misused and how it can hurt people, and was very protective and wanting to like help change that. And so I was already like, it was interesting. The malignancies of sex were discussed in our house, but not like the good, like this is normal, this is natural, this is, it was like, oh, this person's being accused of this, and this is my job and whatnot. So when I talked to him about it, he was like, okay, I mean, not the path I wanted for you, but as long as you're happy, I guess, whatever. And so that really, connected us actually. And we went to conferences together, like the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. He came to a conference with me and a certification with me once. And so it was something that kind of bonded us.
Yeah.
And he really believed in what I did. And he passed away a few years ago, but he was definitely my number one fan in terms of, he saw the benefit and how I was helping and transforming lives, and was like, do it. Go do it.
Oh, he's still your number one fan.
Yeah. No, it's true. So true.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. So it sounds like you went through quite a bit of a few, like almost like what call like, awakenings, mini breakdowns, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Your whole belief system got put upside down, right?
Totally. Yes. And it really started with the issue of homosexuality. And that's really what I was like, wow, I had no idea. Like, and I really went into like in-depth study and went to grad school, and, was like, I want to really understand what I believe and why I believe that. And that's a really big component of when one of the parts of my business is I coach parents on how to talk to their kids about sex. And so I created a program that helps parents figure out why they believe what they believe, and so that they're actually conveying values and information from like intentionally, as opposed to just like, well, this is what I was taught. I don't even know if I think this is true, but I think it's the easiest thing to tell you not to do this or that, or this is gross or wrong. And, don't do that.
Yeah.
So I really try to help them be intentional, and that takes work, right? And that takes a safe space. And I create that with my clients so that they know, like, hey, it's okay to not know the answers now, but that doesn't mean you can't look in and say, how do I want it to be better for my kids?
Yeah. And actually, this is like a side question, but I'm very curious to find out what, because there are obviously still parts in the world where it's actually illegal to be gay, right? And so, And so what can you say to someone who is so anti-gay? Like, because obviously you went through the whole, I guess, like transformation. I mean, I don't know what other word to use, right? And of course, like, I mean, I don't even know if it's appropriate to say it now, but like, I just want to say, about your dad, like, sorry, like it's too late to say condolences because it was years ago.
Okay.
So what do you say to someone who is so anti-gay what do you say to tell them, like, dude, it's all right, like, just chill, or, you know what I mean? Like, what do you say? Like, what is there to say?
Yeah.
Can you say something?
I find that it's really not, I mean, there are some people, it's kind of like those, when you get into Facebook arguments with people and you're like, what? They're not even like open to hearing what I have to say. So I really gauge to see if that person is open to hearing like why they could be wrong. The best way to change a person's heart, I think, and their beliefs is when they get to know somebody who is different than what they have a stereotype of, right? And
Yes.
so when, like somebody, I've seen these amazing documentaries. It's like this guy was in the KKK and then...
Yes, I was thinking about that too.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so incredible. Like there's no conversation that I could have had with that man that would have been like, dude, hating Black people, not cool, right? Like,
yeah. Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, I think there's been a few of those documentaries, but it's mind blowing. I mean, there's one I saw like where the guy, like the Black guy, says he's the one who changes them because he doesn't act up and he doesn't behave in a way that's hateful. He's loving the whole way. I don't know how he did not shit his pants, because I would have moved out of there so quick. I would see in the hoods, I'd be like, I'm out. And I'm not even Black. I would still be scared. I'll be like, fuck. So that guy has so much courage. And it's almost like he broke down their walls, because like, I don't even know why I hate this guy. Why am I hating this guy? The guy's lovely to me. And it was just, it was so disarming and amazing to watch. So so I hear what you're saying is like, you have to see where they're at.
Yeah. And really try to meet them. And a lot of times we hate things that we don't understand.
Yes.
And so once we start to be open to like, I could be wrong about this, or let me just a perspective of curiosity, just that little mind, that reframe of like, hey, maybe I could get to know them, or maybe could see this differently. It's not that I'm wrong, but I could maybe start to see it differently. And that's the door that really allows that dialogue.
Yes. So okay. I love it when conversation goes a little bit like slightly different than I expected. This is cool. So Courtney, I'd love us to talk about the current situation, okay? Because at the moment we're having couples who are... There's two different types of couples. There are the couples who've been living together for years, okay? And then there's the other couples who may have moved in because of the quarantine. They may have been like, okay, let's move in together. We don't want to be apart for 2 months or however long this is going to last. And in that same pot, I put people who also moved in less than a year ago, okay? Because they're still, I think in my mind, still newbies, right? So, but regardless of which pot you are, like whether you're like an original couple, long living, been living together for a long time, an OG couple, or a newbie couple, this is more than just living together, because you're 24/7 on, you don't go out to go to work. You're together all day, apart from one walk a day outside or going grocery shopping. That's it. You're just together. So there's a space factor. You're not out there living your life. There's uncertainty, with what's going on, in the economy, politically, whatnot. So now what? And some of them have kids. So now what? Like, how do we adapt to this new space?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, it's very broad, but
So it's all about mindset, honestly, at this point, because, you can fake some stuff and manipulate like to a certain extent, but at this point, it's really about being intentional and really about getting creative and being like, okay, I can fight this, or I can be like, accept this is my reality. How can I thrive in this situation? How can our sex life thrive? How can we, still take care of our kids and still be parents, but also how can we come together and connect? And that may require sitting down and doing just that. Like, okay, so what are your expectations for sex, for intimacy during this quarantine? Like, what does that look like for you? Because maybe your partner who was once like super, like their sex drive is just like all the time, every day, loving it. And maybe they're like overwhelmed with stress, like they are about to lose their job. And so they are like freaking out and wanting to really pull back sexually, but you won't know that until you have those conversations with them. So I think that just sitting down and like, even if you have kids, after the kids go to bed, or putting a movie on and then going upstairs or going into, your bedroom and just having like a heart to heart of like, hey, we need to just check in with each other and really have like this intentional, intimate time where we can share our feelings in this safe space. And I think that we just keep it on the surface pretty easily, even when we are at home, because so much of our energy is just like absorbed into what's going on with the pandemic and what are the numbers and what are the new what are the new laws, what are the fines, what's open, what can we get to, like what's going on with my job, like all of that is taking like front and center. And so our feelings and how we're thinking about things really drops to the bottom. And so then when we don't deal with them, they start to bubble up because they're saying, hey, I want attention too, kind of like, a toddler with a tantrum, like, hey, you're not paying attention to me. I need you to address this. And so then we start to get really short with each other. We start to say things really like snarky and mean. And it's like, oh, wow, I'm not even like upset with them. I'm just so freaking stressed out about this situation that I haven't taken the time to really process how I'm feeling about this.
Well, this is the thing is that not only there is the whole, whether it's like the couple issue, marital issue, kids, but you are the difference between now and before, back in the days,
right?
Like a few weeks ago, back in the days, you didn't have to be most of the time, unless you were both grieving a child, that's like you parallel processing then. But unless there's something this dramatic or one of you has cancer, whatnot, right? But for the first time, there is no doubt that everyone is parallel processing at the same time. But that's what parallel means, right? So you're processing at the same time. And I think maybe another obstacle comes in is that what would be extra stressful to me, for example, if I was handling the pandemic differently to them. So for example, there are some couples where like, one of them is like, no, I'll still go out. I'll go to my friend's house and, not respecting the lockdown. Right. So they're much more free about it. They don't want to be controlled. And then you have the other person who's like disinfecting the house the whole time, not going outside, the extremes. Right. So I'm sure there are couples like that. Like that's a big value clash right there.
Oh, yeah.
So like, how do you even deal with that? That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's hard because normally I would tell couples, well, like, you can't control what other people do. You can only control how you think about it. In this case, I would definitely share, like, this is a great, like, come to Jesus talk, right? Like, we need to sit down and we need to like, this is not just like, oh, you didn't put the dishes away or you didn't take the garbage out or whatever. This is like you said, it's a value issue. And so sometimes it takes these crazy and extreme circumstances for us to really have to take an inventory and be like, do I want to be with somebody like this? And not that you have to jump to that conclusion, right? Like, oh, they're dismissing the lockdown, but giving them the opportunity to say, hey, it really bothers me that you're not like following the law or, like taking this seriously. And I'm really concerned and not in an accusatory way, but a very like compassionate way. Like, I love you and I love our relationship and this like bothers me and I care about you. So can you share with me like what you're thinking and what your thought process is for like going to continue to like go out? Cause I just like, from my perspective, I don't understand why you would do that based on all this evidence. And then just listen and see what they have to say. And, maybe they're uninformed. Maybe they didn't know how much it bothered you. Maybe they don't give a fuck and they're going to do it anyways.
Yeah. But I think actually that conversation, it would be very interesting because as much as I think it could be a value clash, like I said earlier, now that I'm sort of thinking about it, I think I'm starting to look at it now, just like, I know it's only been like 30 seconds, but I was just thinking, because I think a lot of us may be going from super stress, watching the news to then looking at other information and going, this is all bullshit. It's all about control. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no one really holds the truth. No one really knows what the truth is. And I think if you have that conversation with your partner, let's say you're both handling it differently, there's another part there's another layer to it. And the layer I think is one person is constantly plugged into the news, trying to get an understanding of the situation, a certain sense of certainty by consuming more information. But unfortunately, it has almost the opposite effect because it's forever changing. And depending where you look, because you even have doctors, right, who are saying, this is not what they're telling you it is. It's not as bad it is. And actually, when you look at data, you can really, the way they throw data around, I mean, that's a whole other, I guess, episode, but you could really be standing on both sides and be right, depending how you look at the data and where you get your information from, right? So I think if you have that conversation with your partner, it may even help coming to a nice middle. If you share if there is a value somewhere there that you share, you may actually come to an understanding, because you're like, actually, okay, maybe I should be a bit more careful. I'm not going to go out to my friend's house. But at the same time, the other person could be like, actually, yeah, I'll go outside to the park and walk and just keep my distance, but I don't fear that I'm going to die tomorrow because of that. So you could come to sort of a balance that gets you a bit more sane. And for someone else, that would sound crazy. And for someone else, it'll be like, sure, that's fine. But
yeah, I think finding the commonality, but then also it's a good inventory opportunity for you to look at what you, like you're saying, what you do value. Like for my husband is actually a pulmonary critical care physician. So he's literally on the front lines of this. And so the information that we receive as a family is like firsthand, and it's going to be different than, say, somebody who doesn't have access to that. And so finding out, like, is my value in this website? Like, do I value the information I receive because I'm getting it from this website? Or is there an element of critical thinking? Or am I valuing people who are doing firsthand experiences, people I know that are working in the healthcare or working, behind the scenes? And so that's also a good, like, oh gosh, I didn't realize how much of a news junkie that my girlfriend was, or how much, stock that my boyfriend puts into, following, his family and what they have to say about things.
Yeah. And it's like, and I guess it's like, I mean, even like, even like in the medical industry, people are also disagreeing, right? So it's such a big melting pot that, like you said, it's like you have to really have a conversation about it, because you need to make sense of it and have, while still abiding the law, right? You have to make sense of it for yourselves, so that you don't drive each other crazy and yourself crazy, because there is so much uncertainty. And this is how do we come together? And that was actually one of the submissions I had, which I'll read up some examples a bit later.
Okay.
But yeah, it was about, someone said that we're not being a team. We're not a team. We're not coming together. We're not this, but and that must be really hard.
Yeah.
So to bring it back into living in a confined space with your partner, what is important? Like the mundane, which is like, how you make food, you clean, having your alone time, or how you feel about Trump, like what matters most? Like, because now I think people are really face to face about what matters most now.
That's a tough question. I think it's super subjective, because I think it comes back to, what our values are. Like, do I want somebody that shares the same faith as me, but maybe they vote differently politically? Do I want somebody that wants kids, but doesn't like animals? Do I, so I think that, and depending on what your gifts and what your goals are for your life, like, man, maybe I want to, be a missionary in Africa and help orphan kids and stuff. And so I'm going to look for a partner that's a value for them, right? That traveling and mission work is important, but I don't really care if they know how to, cook or sew, or, they put their clothes away or not. Like,
yeah.
So I think now is a great time for individuals who are, even if they're in committed relationships, to just take an inventory of, gosh, what's important to me? Like, what do I value in my relationships? What do I value in myself? And how can I find somebody that complements those things? And I'm a big complementarian, I don't believe in you find somebody to complete you. I think you find someone to complement you.
I understand what you mean, but can you explain, just in case someone's
So I think that there's this idea like, I have a soulmate out there and they're like my other half, and like something's missing inside of me. And I don't believe that. Like, I think we're totally, completely whole the way that we are. I think that we can survive just fine singly, but obviously humans are meant for relationship and affection and procreation, and sometimes it's better when it's just not you. And so I think if you go with that mentality of, I'm not less than, and I don't need somebody to complete me, but gosh, I would love somebody to complement, and somebody that comes alongside me and goes with this journey together. That's one thing that growing up in the church, and not all churches, right, believe this, but the church that I grew up in, the evangelical one, it was very much like, the man's up here and the woman's down here. And, my husband and I are very much like, no, we're on the same path. Like, we are teammates, we're together, we're on this journey. And sometimes he's going to take the lead on stuff. And most of the time I'm going to take the lead on stuff.
Yeah.
And that's just how it goes. I think that when you come and you see, how can I make him better and how can she make me better? However the relationship or the sexes are, that's what matters. Not like, oh, there's a deficiency here or there's something wrong with me. I need to find somebody to fix that.
Yeah, no, I love what you said. And it's like, because at the moment, like I said, I'm fine, and obviously I'm doing this podcast and I can Zoom or call friends, but because everyone is in isolation, I don't feel left out. So I don't feel lonely. I would probably feel more lonely if it wasn't a pandemic, because I'm like, oh, why am I not being invited to this party? Why am I not? I feel less lonely now than I did just before pandemic. I had like a phase in February. I was like, oh, I'm not feeling too good now. But now I'm like, I feel okay. Like, I've adapted. I have my ups and downs. Like, I do have my days where I feel anxious. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm still human, but I don't. But I feel where I feel very comfortable is actually being alone at the moment. Apart from being a bit scared for living alone, but like in terms of like company wise, like I can entertain myself. But I do agree with you that if I did have someone who would be a great team and I would have fun with, and we could, we'd go through this together as a team, that would be obviously better. Like, I love that. But for me, it's like, if I don't have that, I'd rather be by myself, because I don't get bored alone. I don't need to have someone there to hold my hand, but it'd be nice to have.
Yeah, of course.
And actually, talking about this being in a confined space, do you think that now, especially, that living somewhere like where there's a lot of space is important for couples' happiness? Because I'm just thinking, like, this is going to be, I'm obviously super simplifying and being quite vulgar right now, but do rich people with more space, they're probably a bit happier now, but do they argue less because they have more space? Do they argue less because they're happier, or they're a bit less connected? Like, how does space that we have around us play into this relationship in confinement?
Yeah, I think it's easy to think that somebody who has more space, it makes it easier. And I think to some extent, it honestly does. Like, I mean, we live in a small village in Germany that has access to trails and the forest right behind us. And so I don't feel confined. But gosh, if I was in like a high rise in like downtown Toronto or, in Seattle, I would probably feel a little claustrophobic. And also because of the situation, right? Like,
yes,
if people are telling you like you can't leave, then it's kind of like it turns into a prison. And I'm seeing that with my kids too. Like, even though we have this beautiful space and the outdoors here, they still, like, their home is now their prison because they can't go see their friends. They can't go to school. And it's like, no, you guys, we have to stay inside. Like, you can do that, but you can't. Like, you can, but you can't, And so it's really about recognizing how it can be this double-edged sword, like this place of safety and comfort and just ease has now turned into this like fortress and like a lockdown, and I'm starting to resent it. And so I think it's important to recognize those feelings and recognize those thoughts that are causing those feelings of, okay. And it's easy to take it out on the person that you're stuck there with, right? Like, take it out with your cellmate as opposed to taking it up with the warden,
Yeah.
It makes it difficult when, when my husband and I were first married, we had this little apartment in downtown Indianapolis, and it was like 600 square feet. And man, it would have been really tough to be going through that with him now. And so the skills and tools that I would have needed for that are going to be different than for what I need now with a bigger house and the kids. But one way that I've been trying to help couples think about, and my clients think about it, is asking themselves, what freedom can I find within these walls? Like, how can I find freedom in these walls and in my relationship? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah.
And really thinking, because I think of, like, again, not trying to compare our lockdown to being in prison, because it's not the same, but the mentality of so many prisoners who, like, that being like in a cage and that feeling of like losing their humanity. Like they have to do so much mental work to really overcome that, to not let it get them down and not let it beat them down, and to really focus on a purpose. And so that's what I try to help my clients with, is thinking like, what made me feel free and empowered before this pandemic? Like what was that like a few weeks ago?
That's a great analogy because like you said, this is not like we're in prison, but inmates are actually, they're the best prepared for this because they're the best prepared. Yeah, they're the one who are going to survive any zombie apocalypse.
Right, I know.
Yeah, because not only do they have to do that mental exercise, but they have real enemies outside the cell. Like it could be, for some of them, it'll be, the warden, and for others, it'll be other cellmates who are out there trying to get them. So, yeah. And so they need to create that sense of humanity, regain their own humanity, their own respect, and their freedom. Yeah, that was quite powerful what you said, actually. So how do we, in terms of, you mentioned tools. So I'm just thinking, we have a couple and, they may be struggling. They don't want to really have sex. And you mentioned a few things now and earlier, like one of them being about what would that sense of freedom, what does it look like? And then the other things that you mentioned was about make sure you almost like a date night. Yeah, go upstairs or go to the room and just have a conversation. But I wonder, like, sometimes conversation can help, but sometimes it can almost do the opposite effect, right? So how do we feel sexy? How do we want to latch on? Because what was attractive at the beginning, we enjoyed their mind. Probably, I mean, for me, like, I need to enjoy someone's mind. I need sharpness. But if it becomes maybe like a bit too much, too friendly, I don't want to feel like he's my brother.
Right.
So that would take away the libido. So how do we juggle that? Yeah,
it's a very like fine line, that we have this need to like nest and feel safe and secure and have this predictability. But then like this other part of our brain wants the change and the excitement and that sense of risk.
Yeah.
And so it's about walking that fine line of like, I want to be emotionally intimate, but unfortunately emotional intimacy like drops our sexual desire, right? And our sexual intimacy, because the more we know about someone, like they become, like you're saying, they become familiar, and familiar is exciting. Yeah. Familiar is not exciting. And so thinking of like creative ways to step outside of that intimate bond for a moment and really turn toward like ourselves and focus on like what makes us like turned on, what makes us aroused, what excites us, what's sensuous to us. And that may be, especially for a lot of the clients that I work with, like they've never really done that before. They've never had to turn inward. It's always about, pleasing my partner, like doing the wifely duty, just kind of like this chore or this act. And really now I think is an opportunity for them to be like, gosh, what do I want? What do I like? And then sharing that with their partner and being, bold enough to have those conversations of like, so I just started, self-stimulation, or I just started thinking about maybe we could do this, or gosh, once a week, I'm going to not wear underwear around the house. And you'll have to figure out what day it is, right?
Oh yeah, I love that. That's great.
Like just fun little games where you can just change it.
What else? What else? Because that's fun. Okay, like I like those practical tools. What else? I like the underwear bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's like on an audio Zoom call as opposed to like a video one, like giving your partner like oral sex like during that. And, that makes it exciting and risky and like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be paying attention to this, but really this is like, oh, amazing, and it's something just the two of you share.
Yeah.
I mean, just like little flirty things, maybe like when you walk by their desk, or like shove like a little note under there. Like, let's say they're, stuck in the office or the bedroom that's now their office. You like shove a little note under the door, or, that's like an explicit sexual message, or, like instructions for later, like meet me in the bathroom at 2:00 or something, like don't wear any clothes. I mean, just different ways that you and your partner can connect that's creative. I mean, sometimes my husband and I will play like board games, and we're so competitive, and it will just like get that excitement and that, I mean, it's not even like quote sexual, but because we're just like, it's just so, it's playful, right? And like we forget how to play when we grow up and we, have kids and we can have sex, whenever we want, or meaning we have a partner that's available typically. And so we forget how to have fun and be playful. And that's really, this gives us an opportunity to try to do more of that.
I love the idea of the board game too, because nothing like a bit of competition to get the juices flowing.
Yes,
it's like a good competitive game. That's what I love, play fight. Like in the bed too. I'm like, but when I have a partner, I like to play fight because there's something about it that's like, because you need to remember that person is his own individual, and there's nothing in playing a game, because you're actually adversary in that moment. You're not together. You're not the same team. And you need to be reminded that person is different to you. And they have at any time they can choose to walk out. I mean, you don't want to be thinking that way, but it's almost, you have to almost see them as they're a free individual. You don't own them. It doesn't matter how married you are, how many kids you have. At any moment, you could lose that person, whether it's because, they've been taken away from you or because they decided to walk out the door.
No, absolutely.
Right. So it's that reminds you. And I think that sense, which is sometimes why I think when things go a bit, sometimes if you always argue and bicker, sometimes the sex can be sometimes better. I mean, it can revive it a little bit, because you like, when you're talking about breaking up or whatnot, and I know it's very unhealthy and toxic, I guess, that bit, but if you like thinking that, say I'm losing them, but you still are attracted to them, the sex all of a sudden takes a whole different level, right? It is because you realize that person is not yours, really. Right. They're their own person. And I think when you're in a confined space now, that must be hard to forget, because they're in your face the whole time, depending how big your place is, right? So
yeah. And that's something I see with a lot of my the clients the women I work with, is that they're moms, they're married, they don't have a job typically outside of the home. And so they have no separateness. They are completely like the, those motorcycles that have like the compartment on the side of them.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like
they're like, but you can drive someone, but they're on the side of you on the back.
They're like a sidecar thing. They're like along for the ride, and they don't like, they're not on their own motorcycle going with their partner. They're just connected, and that becomes a turnoff over time, right?
And when you're on the side, you're being looked after, and no one is turned on.
No.
I mean, it's good to feel needed. There's something about it, but looking after someone, you feel like their mother or their father, and that's again not attractive. So you're talking those women are like, you mean like when they are staying at home and they don't have a job or hobbies or passions, right?
Yes. And it doesn't have to be a job. They just have nothing. They have nothing that brings them joy or passion. Nothing that's like, hey, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to go with my girls. I'm going to go to volunteer at church. I'm going to go to the soup kitchen, like whatever it is. They don't have that. And I think, American culture, it's very much like, well, now that you're a mom, your whole life is the kids, and like that, everything revolves around, we're very child centric, and that's a whole other talk. But, that is a big reason that I see with couples, is that we've sold out our separate card, and we've just been like, but I'll just be the mom and I'll fulfill all your needs, and nobody wants to have sex with their mom, right?
No, like, exactly. Yeah. And I think, but the thing, right, which, and I hear what you're saying, and at the same time, like, it must be hard for those women, because at the same time, I think some of them are having this feeling of guilt if they go and find something of their own, right?
Absolutely.
So yes, they're there because they're doing what they think or feel is the right thing to do.
The right thing. Yep.
Yeah. And of course you should look after your kids and whatnot. But but it's like, the thing is that even for yourself, it's important, and I know not everyone knows how to get in touch with it, and not everyone feels like they can do what it is that they feel passionate about. But if you can, like, try, it's important to find something that you enjoy, and it can be anything from collecting I don't know, stamps,
spoons.
Yeah, exactly, spoons. It doesn't matter. You have to have something that lights you up, because at the end of the day, most people don't really care what it is that you're passionate about. Like, as long as you're not collecting, like, cadavers. I mean, I'm saying like, just, stay within the bounds, but no one really, really, really cares what it is that you're passionate about. No one cares that much. But what they care about, what they're attracted to, is that light that shines through you. There's that sparkle that comes out when you talk about it. That's attractive. That's what people want to be around. And it's an energy. And it's as simple as that. So go and collect your spoons, find your passion. Doesn't matter. Even if it's about hoovering 5 times a day and that rocks your socks off, do it. I don't care. But it's that light. And I mean, would you, I don't know, what would you think?
Oh, no, I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, and what's more attractive than confidence?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like,
but no,
I want to have sex with confidence. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Because the thing is also like, I mean, I don't know what it feels like to be a man. I don't know, because I haven't been a dude in ever. So, but as a woman, I feel I have to feel safe. And this is actually, I did have some guys actually make some submissions too. I wasn't sure if they were being serious or just being silly, but maybe they were serious. But I think for me, like, as a woman, I have to feel that I can trust my partner. I have to feel safe. So, and feeling safe is that I can, we're talking about sex now and intimacy and all that. I have to, and even actually for relationships, you have to feel that I can come undone. I can unravel myself in front of you, in the act. I can just, whatever, because you've got this. You are holding the space for me. You're there to grab me, basically, literally catch me when I fall, because you're in that's the most vulnerable you're ever going to be. You can't defend yourself in that particular moment when you're climaxing. So you have to feel someone. And I think this is maybe also why sometimes you see, for example, women, I mean, I've experienced that where I was like always trying to bust the guy around. It's because I didn't feel safe in his leadership. I didn't feel, and it's not because he has to be a leader. It's not in a patriarchal way, but it's like, I like to relax and be just me. And I love being a woman. Okay. So I try to be, just me and cute and just, sexy, whatnot, when I'm with a man, but I can't be that woman if I feel like I have to mother him. And if I feel like he's going to drive us into a ditch. That feeling that the guy's got no control, he's got no handle over his shit. And that's what it is. And I think, that will bring sex appeal to anyone. It doesn't matter what they look like.
Absolutely.
So are there any other like tools or like tips? So anything that you've sort of noticed before I go into like the submissions that I've received?
I mean, I think just being aware that, another, boner killer is responsibility. And right now, a lot of people are feeling burdened with responsibility. Like now I'm my kid's teacher, right? And now I have to find a job, or now I'm worried if I'm going to lose my job, and then how am I going to pay my mortgage? And so like all this responsibility is now like also in the room with all of this. And so that can be just a really big like sex killer. So I think when you're able to recognize, okay, how can we table this responsibility, or how can we acknowledge it and just like put it in a box, or just recognize like, okay, I'm going to think about, school from this time to this time for the kids. And then after that, it's my time. Like I get to think about whatever I want to think about. But I'm still giving my attention and being responsible for, this information or this project or whatever right now, but then I'm not going to let it consume all of me.
Yeah, because I mean, that is a lot to deal with. I mean, that's the thing is that I don't always realize that, and I forget youbecause, I don't have children. So, but there are obviously those with that you have to school your kids. And I mean, that's a lot to deal with because you're not all, and this is in quotes, we're not a weekend parent anymore, obviously there's like weeknights. You have a full week parent, and you have to school them.
Yep. It's a lot.
So does that feel like a lot of the freedom is taken away also, that bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because we didn't ask for it, right? It wasn't a choice on us. It was like I homeschooled my oldest when she was in kindergarten. So like that was a choice that, our family made, but it's a hell of a lot different of a feeling now when it's like, and you will homeschool all three of them and work full time and do all this. So it's almost like a panicky feeling.
And also it's like loads of subjects that you're not familiar with anymore.
Oh, well, and they're in German school, so I don't speak German.
Oh my God.
I'm like, what is happening right now? Yeah, it's a lot.
I have this image in my mind now, because obviously there are women who choose to homeschool their children all the way through. And, some of them have a few. And I just picture them now like a meme going, bitches, we've been ready for this for years. You've been judging us, but now you're begging for help. Like, I'm just picturing them going,
it's so true.
Right? They'll come out of the pandemic winning. You know what I'm saying? Like they're ready for this. They've been prepared. So
absolutely.
So how do you come to terms with this imposition?
At first it's a lot like the stages of grief. Okay, you're fighting with it and bargaining with it, then I'm pissed about it. And then I'm depressed. So like, it really went through all the phases. And so I finally was just like, okay, this sucks for everybody. So how can I make the most of it? Right? Like, how can I turn this into an opportunity to connect with my kids, but then also like, using this time to like spread the message that it's okay and that this is hard and you're going to get through it. So really just diving into my work and using that as an opportunity to keep me grounded. So that gives me freedom. And that is that knowing that I can get on my Facebook groups and Instagram and really connect with people and my clients every week and really pour into them. And then also find that balance with my kids and really try to empower them to show up like, hey, like my oldest is 11, like you need to learn like how time management and responsibility. And, like you're going to have to up your game a little bit because I can't help you with some of this German stuff. And so what can I do to help support you?
Yeah. And I think it's almost like also a great time to show them to be more independent because I think when you have them on the weekend, you're probably more, as a parent, more likely to cater for them more, right? But you can't sustain that. Well, it's very hard to sustain that 7 days a week. So
yeah, absolutely.
So I was wondering if I could read some of the submissions.
Yeah, please.
And then we can discuss it. I want to hear your opinion.
Okay.
So it's been interesting because there's been like a mix. There's obviously the people who are loving it. They couldn't be happier. Oh, sorry, I didn't read my question. The question I submitted was, what is the biggest challenge being cooped up with your partner and how you're handling it? So some of them were like mega happy, loving it. Other people were like, they wish they had a partner to be cooped up with. But then I want to read you those where people are in a couple.
Okay.
And so some of them, a few of them were like, the way they handle it is like, when it's overwhelmed, they go to the bathroom, like the bathroom time. They seem to be going there a few more times a day than they would just to get away and have some alone time. And then there was one here. So this is one of the submission. I'll just read out what she said.
Okay.
So I'll just read out the question again, just to give context. So what is the biggest challenge being cooped up with your partner and how you're handling it? So one of the submissions are no privacy since it's a one-room apartment. So if we have to make phone calls, we have to go outside and I can't work out on my own. So I think she means like fitness, working out. How to take space is going outside for a walk is a crime now. Have to poop silently. My vagina hurts from too much sex. And then someone else replied to that one because it was in the Facebook group. Someone else said, I wish my vagina was beat up right now. Grass is always greener, ... So there's a lot of like, people are, but yeah, the pooping thing, this is why I think space, I think having more space or money for space does help because even if you are not in isolation, I mean, bathroom, you don't always want to hear what's going on.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe have like a headphone time, like headphones, or like
headphones. Yeah. Or
like just have a secret word or like a code word that's like, bananas. And so that's like, oh, I got to go poop. So I'm going to put my headphones on so I can like, focus on something else. But then it kind of becomes like an inside joke between the two of you when this is all over. Like, oh gosh, don't say bananas. It reminds me of like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like to have like, inside jokes, inside words. It's just always good. There's another one here. She said, being on my period and having obnoxious mood swings with him cooped up with me in our apartment 24/7. It was about 3 days of me biting my tongue and deep breathing when irritated over stupid little things. But I did end up unfairly taking a couple of things out on him, open brackets, when I didn't recognize it at times because ... hormones, close brackets. Fortunately, it wasn't the end of the world and we talked them out. And the past couple of days have been amazing, despite me being hard on myself internally for succumbing to the mood swings. Aside from a few days of that mess, it's been beautiful being stuck together and having all the in-between moments of silly fun. It's highlighted for me the areas that need healing, because anything I've had a problem with or that has bothered me has been way more a problem in me than with him. That's another challenge, being cooked up with him keeps this big mirror in my face of the things I need to work through and heal for a relationship to continue to grow. So that's what we were talking about earlier. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's really insightful.
I thought so too. I was like, girl.
Yeah, nice job. Yeah, I mean, I think this uncertainty like brings out our insecurities. And when we feel insecure, like it's just our like human nature to like defend, right? And so even if our partner is not like trying to attack us, we may perceive it as an attack. And so we're automatically going to go on the attack right back, because that's the safest way to keep ourselves protected. And mount that defense against them. And so I think when we start to realize, which sounds like that's what she realized, like I see what I'm doing, and like that's huge. Like so many people don't even get to that part where they're like, oh gosh, I am doing that. Wow, because I'm feeling, and it's unconsciously happening where I feel threatened, or because I feel caged, or because I am thinking these thoughts, but I don't bring them to the surface. And so I just shove them down. I don't deal with them. And then when I start to lash out, like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was really that angry about everything that's going on.
Can I ask you actually, I mean, because that girl is mega self-aware. Let's say, you lash out, you have an argument. Like, how do you get over arguments? What's the healthiest way? Like because I have this sense sometimes of like real guilt, and it makes me sick to my stomach that, like that maybe I lashed out in the wrong way. Like it wasn't fair, and I feel bad. How do you get over that bit? How do you become friends again?
Because you asked two things. How do you get over the conflict, or how do you get over the guilt?
I think it's this. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that was two different
they're different.
Things. Yeah. Okay. Well, conflict one, and then I guess guilt that's the heaviest one.
So when we have interactions, we develop a thought and that causes a feeling. Okay. So I would ask myself, if I wasn't like seeing somebody, I would be like, okay, why do I feel guilty? Why do I feel guilty about this conflict? And then well, let me ask you, Angie, when you feel guilty, what's typically the thought that's behind it?
Let me think. Well, I don't want them to think that I'm a horrible person. I don't, and also like, I don't want someone to remember me that way. So, and I don't want to make someone feel that way. And inevitably I think, well, I'm not worthy the fight. So of course they're going to walk out.
Yeah. Wow. You went there really fast.
I've done a lot of work on myself into therapy. So I'm kind of used to it almost, but I had to like think about it for a bit because I haven't been in a serious relationship in a while. So I almost forget, you know what I'm saying? Like how it feels to argue, but yeah.
Yeah. No, that's so true, because that's what happens is that we feel this sense of guilt because we have this thought that's causing that. So yours was, I don't want this person to not like me, or I'm a terrible person. And that terrible person belief is rooted in the belief that like, I'm not worthy. And so when we're able to recognize that this isn't about me feeling guilty, this is about me not feeling worthy. And so then we can start to attack the disease as opposed to the symptom, because the guilt is the symptom. The disease is the feeling of unworthiness.
Yeah. And I think, I'm curious to see how it goes when, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to have a relationship in 2020. That's cancelled because we don't know how long this is going to last. But in 2021, when I start dating again, I'll be curious to see how, because I've done so much work on myself and whatnot. And this podcast has been very therapeutic, but I'll be curious to see if I'll still feel that, because at the moment in my mind, without being in a relationship, I'm like, yeah, fuck it. If he doesn't want to fight, if he doesn't want to like work this out with me, because now I'm very much like, if you don't like me, I don't have to like you.
Right. Yes.
Right? Like, I like you, but from afar. Like, I'm not interested in silliness, and I put up with a lot of like exciting guys, but this is not, but it's terrible. Really bad for me. And so now I'm not even interested in that. I'm like, it's not even attractive to me.
No thanks.
It may be for a minute, and then I'm like, no, why would I want to be treated that way? It's terrible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think I've definitely gone up in my self-worth, which is good. I want to read it actually, because this, I think something else that comes up too with this pandemic is that people are realizing what they've put up with. So this is another submission I want to read out is, so I'll just read out the question again, in case people forget. But what is the biggest challenge being cooped with your partner and how you're handling it? And someone said, we haven't spent one night together. We both live alone separately and have no children or family. And yet somehow, this was on the 29th of March, by the way. So just to give, so that was context. And yet somehow he is going out drinking almost every other night with his friends and buddies. The fact that he doesn't want to quarantine with me or has not made any effort to spend time with me has pretty much told me everything I need to know. Basically, I'm not on his essentials list. And then someone else replied to that comment, maybe think about why you're interested in someone who is acting so destructively. I'd shut up some other guys, but also remember guys need their alone time.
Yeah.
What thoughts?
So my first thought is, does this show up a lot in her life? Like, is she continually being in relationships with men who are not making her a priority? Because I think what is happening, and it might not be, maybe this is just a one-off, but what I see with a lot of my clients is they continue to date the same person. I mean, not the actual same person, but like the same type of person over and over again, because the universe, God, whoever you want to call it, is trying to teach them a lesson.
100%.
They cannot learn that lesson until they really are like, okay, fine. I get what you're trying to teach me, right? Like, I have a client right now who she continues to be in relationships with men who cheat on her every single time. And what we've identified quite quickly is that she doesn't love herself. She has no value. It's that she believes, like, she doesn't believe that she's worthless. She's not enough. And so she enters into these relationships thinking, well, this is all I'm going to get. And so then when they cheat on her, it's like, oh, and then it just solidifies. And
So
that was honestly my first thought is this something that continues to happen? And if it does, then that's one issue. If it doesn't, then I would like do some investigating and, you have to be an advocate for yourself. Like, nobody's a mind reader. And so if you aren't able to say, hey, it bothers me that you're out like drinking it up with your pals and you haven't seen me once. Any thoughts on that? And if he's like, nope, I don't have a problem with it. Like, okay, well, I do. And I want to be with somebody who values time together. And that's clearly not important to you. And not in like like a passive aggressive way, but just a very much like, this is what I need. And if you're not able to like meet that or be a part of that or be on the team that supports that, then this isn't the right team for us.
I love this. And it's also because I think a lot of us are afraid to have this conversation so let's say with our partner, because we're afraid to like, is there a reason why, like you were just saying that, like, is there a reason why you're not spending time with me? Like, for me, that's not okay. People are afraid of the answer. So they're afraid that person's going to say, no, I don't care. And I want to end, like, or they're going to say something so bad that you're going to have to end it with them. Right. So, and the thing is,
when we do that is that we're putting the impetus on our well-being onto someone else. And effectively, we should not be leading our lives on whether the other person likes us or not, right? We
Absolutely.
have to really show. And I mean, that's the reason why I say it, because I've had to learn this too. And it's like, actually, this is not okay for me. It's not okay for me. So I'll take the hit that you're leaving, but I'm having this conversation. So if you're still here, great. If we solved it, great. But if we haven't, then you're not for me. We're not a match. Yeah. And I think we need to be okay with the fact that we don't have to be a match. If you're not a match, move it along. Because
absolutely.
Yeah, move it along. Be heartbroken, feel the feels, but you got to move it along because it becomes really unhealthy. There was even, actually, what we were saying about universal God, even for someone who doesn't believe in, like, let's say someone doesn't believe in any of that, right? There's also even a simple, almost like, on the more reasonable side or science side is like, you have something inside that you're still trying to heal something, that you have a belief inside that you're not worthy, and you keep repeating this and attracting the same kind of guys until you realize that, oh, actually, that's not good. Until you can, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it, right? So until you see, like for me, I had to be with healthier guys, like emotionally healthy guys, to understand that, oh, that's what that feels like. That's what that looks like. And at the beginning, I didn't like it. I was like, this is boring. Oh, boring. Yeah. And then all of a sudden but you have to really do the work. You have to date a lot. I mean, I have to date a lot to all of a sudden to go, oh, wait, this is attractive. This guy is stepping up. He really wants to spend time with you. He's stepping up in a real way, not just a superficial way. And that's a turn on. And until you can, but you have to almost feel it in your body, because you have to see that, because at the moment that's her normal, maybe,
Absolutely.
Person. And until you've seen something else, you're going to keep doing the same thing. You have to know on the molecular level what it feels and looks like, because once you do, these kind of guys that are putting it as an option, you're not even going to be attracted to them. Not for long. Yeah, for one night, maybe. And then you'll be like, oh, I'm bored of you now.
Yeah.
It's not going to last. And that's almost like the point you want to get to. It's like, oh, I can't be doing with you.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, because I mean, there were some other submissions as well, where it's like, where the partners were clearly cheating on them. And because they're in isolation, I mean, this is not funny, but because they're in isolation, they are seeing them, they're still texting the other girl.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
I find it interesting about the whole confrontation, right? Because we're so uncomfortable with the thoughts that we have inside, but we fear the discomfort of the conversation that we could have, right? So either way, you're uncomfortable. And I think that people forget that, like all of this anxiety that I'm producing right now for me constantly every day versus one conversation that I could have with somebody else. Like, holy cow, look, think of all the mental space I could free up.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, you're right. But I think, like you said, like, I think we're so scared of having this uncomfortable, and don't get me wrong, like I can put up a good fight, but it doesn't mean I didn't feel sick about it. Like, I hate confrontation, but I'll do the confrontation, but I hate it. And sometimes I've just stopped myself from saying anything too. So I understand the struggle around it.
It is hard.
But I think there's the other part of like, better the devil because you may feel anxious right now. Is he texting her? But you may feel that you may feel more scared to have that uncomfortable conversation because you probably are going to have to leave each other. You have to break up. And then that's the whole grieving process. And there's a whole mental space of, now I'm alone. You start thinking about your age and are you going to find someone else? All these, those are all lies, by the way, because people find love at 80. Like, we're good.
Oh,
we're fine.
So true. Yes.
Yeah. And, and I think, and even if you didn't, you can find, you're whole as a person. And I think now, what do they do? Because now they're in lockdown, in isolation with someone, they probably think, I should have fucking left him. Or what do I do? Like, what would you say to what? How can we comfort them?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do as much as you can to prepare for battle, I guess, is the first thing, and not like a physical. I'm talking emotional. So really do the mind work, really do. There are so many like mental health and like Reiki and yoga and lots of this like distance you can still do virtually, even if you don't go somewhere. Talking to a domestic violence advocate, talking to a counselor, a therapist, a coach. So tapping into the resources that you can when you can in a safe place. So that I would just like do as much. It reminds me of like the movie Enough with Jennifer Lopez. And when she was, I think it was in the early 2000s or late 90s. And she was domestic violence. Her husband was kicking the crap out of her. And so
I haven't seen that.
She left. And when she was gone, like she worked her like physical, like worked out. She got physically super strong. She got mentally super strong because she knew there'd be a day he'd come to try to find her. And so I would focus on what you can control. And no one can take, what's between your ears. Like that is that's so powerful, right up there.
Like the inmates in the prison.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, let's say if you live in a studio, like in a small confined space, let's say, maybe try and go to the toilet, and if he'll leave you alone, I mean, just, whilst he's texting his side chick, go to the toilet. Once he's busy doing something else, go to the bathroom, put on your headphones, your laptop with the internet or your phone with the internet, and do there's loads of free meditation. I really love Gabby Bernstein. She does loads of really fast ones, very practical ones. Her emails are great. I'm also going to start putting videos out with stuff like that. But Gabby Bernstein, fantastic for that. So there's loads of different ones. You can go on YouTube. And I think, in a way, this is almost like you're prepping for your mental fight, because a bit like Rocky, when he prepares.
Right.
Yeah, I love the Rocky movies. And little bit, because I think in your head, now you have time, use this time to mentally break up with him, so that you're already there. If it is what you choose to do, obviously, I'm not telling you to break up with people, but let's say if you're in a situation where you're like, I should have broken up with him before pandemic. Use that as a fuel. And like you said, build yourself up inside out, whatever it is you need to do. But it's not easy. It is not easy. It's a huge mirror on all of us, I think, the situation, for sure.
It is. It's,
Oh, Courtney, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Look, I asked the same two questions to all my guests. And so the first one is, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Oh, gosh. That you're enough, that you are enough. I think that's the lesson that took me a really long time to learn, that I was constantly trying to be something for everyone else. And really, I just needed to believe that I was enough. Yeah.
Yeah. I hear that. And the second one is, what stuff do you not put up with anymore?
Oh, I'm really good now about setting boundaries, and not letting people take advantage of me for my gift of listening and offering, sage advice. I used to have people call me and email me and text me and really want to use my services, kind of like going to the dentist and getting your teeth cleaned and being like, okay, thanks, bye. And being like, yes, hey, you didn't pay for that. So I've done I really am just like, hey, I went to school a lot for this. And this is my job and I love it. And I love helping people. But I also want to get paid for it too. So
absolutely. Cause you get drained. It's like an exchange of energy. I get the same with the health coaching as well. Well, this is wonderful. And I love that you can, setting boundaries is so important. So important. And so where can people find you?
Yes. So my website is thesteppingstonescoach.com. And then I'm also at Instagram and Facebook at The Stepping Stones Coach.
Thank you. And do you have any online program that you currently have opened for people to join?
So I recently created a program, a 5-week program that really targets this pandemic. It's about really getting a strong mindset. It's about freeing up mental energy. It's about learning how to respond instead of react to situations. And that can be found on my website. It's called Change the Narrative. And then I also have a program specifically for overcoming sexual barriers. So if any of the things that we talked about in terms of sexuality resonated with you today, feeling like you're not interested, it's an issue with you and your partner, or even if you're single and you just don't feel good about sex or just your relationship with your body, it's a 6-week program that's meant to help you overcome those things that are blocking you.
Wonderful. Wow, I love this. This is great. Courtney, this has been so much fun. Like, you've got such a great, I just love you. You've been fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. So look, thank you so much. Like, people, go and check out Courtney. She's so wonderful. And thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you, Angie. I had so much fun.
And that's our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to rate, review, share it, subscribe it on iTunes, follow it on Spotify, or whichever platform you listen from. However you show love is how you can support this show. Drop me your questions or suggestions for future episodes via the website at angie-ness.com, or come and find me on Instagram. I have 2 accounts. One is at Tool for This Shit Podcast and at Health Expert Angie, link in the show notes. See you next week, and until then.
Using health inappropriately.